Do you remember back when you were in driver's ed and you learned everything you need to learn about driving? You learned that if you stepped on the gas, on the pedal, it would go. If you stepped on the brakes, the car would stop. If the light is green, you go. If the light is red, you don't go. If you want to turn right, turn your signal on and then turn right. Like, you learned everything and more you didn't know about driving in driver's ed. But when you got behind the car, did you know how to drive? You did not know how to drive. You did not know that when you stepped on the pedal, the amount of pressure you put on it would either make the car jump forward or edge up slow. You didn't know how to slowly stop the car when you put your foot on the brake. All you knew was how to, when you're doing those jerky brakes. You didn't know that when you're approaching a green light, to be cautious if it's already green, because you might go ahead and turn yellow and red on you. You didn't know what you didn't know to drive. Even though you learned so much about driving, when it came to getting behind the wheel, you honestly didn't know anything. And so this is to say that learning just for learning's sake is not going to change anything for you. You don't learn by just reading a book or watching YouTube videos or listening to some podcasts or going to a classroom. Even though it feels like learning, because you're literally getting the information and you're getting it in your head. But that's not what learning is. Learning is when you do that, you use information. And if you're not using information, you're not learning anything. If you literally took a driver's ed class but never got behind a car, you don't know how to drive. Even though you have the information in your head, you don't know how to drive. And what you're trying to learn right now, if you're trying to learn some skill, you're trying to learn how to make some money, you're trying to learn how to start a business, you're trying to learn how to write a book or grow a social media following, you're trying to learn how to lose weight or whatever, that stuff does not matter unless you're getting experience, unless you're getting behind the wheel, unless you're failing the business and learning from your mistakes, unless you're practicing the skills, unless you're getting into the gym and learning what's actually helping you shed that weight. You feel me? Like, you're not going to learn until you get your hands dirty. And I feel like so many people, and this is me for a long time, just consume without doing. Learning is just consuming. Experience is doing. You're not going to improve your intelligence by just learning. You only improve your intelligence by learning and doing. And honestly, if you didn't even learn anything, if I told you to start a business and you just started getting your offer in front of people without even reading a book on business, you'd be far ahead of the person who just read a book. But if you read a book on business and then you just constantly did something with that, you'd be far ahead of both people. Because you're learning things and you're doing what you've learned. And even though you're going to fail in both cases, the person who read the book and fails, they're going to know exactly what they're messing up on, rather than blindly saying, well, I don't know what works, so I'm just going to keep throwing mud at the wall. You're going to say, well, I read this concept, maybe I'm doing this wrong, I can tweak that and change things around. You feel me? But regardless, learning does not happen if it is absent of you doing, of you gaining experience. And I want you to start prioritizing getting experience as much as you prioritize over consuming information, alright? Now, let me do a quick pause and say, who am I? My name is Faith, and my goal is to help entrepreneurs, creators, and high achievers reach their goals by teaching you how to take action, stay consistent, and make your goals happen. And then if you watch this far into the video, and you like my vibe, you feel like I'm talking your language, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I do make videos like this every single day, because I want to help you reach your goals. Alright? Now, back to the case at hand. You gotta prioritize doing as much as you prioritize learning. And honestly, it's easy to overconsume and learn as much as you want, because it makes you feel productive and it makes you not have to take any risks, Like, for a long time, I wanted to make my own business. I wanted to have something. I wanted to have income coming in. But I consumed information all the time because it was just easier for me to do that. It made me feel like I was getting somewhere, but in reality, I wasn't, because when I started my business, all the videos I watched, it didn't really do anything. It wasn't until I started seeing what's not working that I was able to actually start reading in a more specific way, that I started looking for books that can help me solve specific problems, rather than saying, oh, I want to start a business, let me just find a business book. It was, okay, I got my feet wet, I messed up, I got people in front of my offer, but nobody's getting anything. Now let me find a book on how to make sure people actually get what I'm selling, you feel me? So, like, getting that experience helped me get the right information instead of just looking around, making it broad. It helped me dial down on what mattered find information quickly, and then get right back into doing. And that's what I want you to get into the habit of. Like, instead of prioritizing learning, do something first so you make mistakes, and so you can ask yourself, well, how can I stop these mistakes from happening? And then you can look that up. So now you're being very specific about your learning. You're not just trying to find every single thing. You're only trying to find the answer to this one problem, figure it out, then continue doing what you're doing. And then you come to another problem, go back to the drawing board, learn something, and then go right back to doing. I want you to prioritize doing over learning, because here's the funny thing. If you're doing, you're learning way more than just learning from reading books. If that makes sense. If you're doing something, you're learning way more than just passively reading books, passively listening to podcasts, passively watching YouTube videos. Now, does this mean you should never read or listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos or even get a class, you go to a class? Of course not. Continue to do those things because you're feeding your mind with new information, new perspectives. But I want you to also add in that doing part that so many of us overlook because you feel like we gotta know more to do. But no, until you do, you'll never know what you need to know. You feel me? Like, until you got into that car, you had no clue that you had to worry about the pressure you put onto the pedals. You had no clue about that until you got in the car. You had no clue that when you came up to a stoplight, you had to be wary of what the light was and be aware of, is this gonna turn yellow fast? Or am I good enough to keep going? You had no clue until you start doing it. And then you went back to the drawing board and said, let me reflect on this. How can I do better? And then you did better. So this is a very short video. I just want you to know that it's more important for you to do things. And honestly, it is scary to do things. I completely understand. It is so scary because you're going into this uncertain area, you're risking things, you're gonna fail, and failing hurts, failing sucks. But that's the only way you're gonna get better. Like with riding a bike. When you first learned how to ride a bike, you fell off over and over and over again. But you kept getting back on, and you got better and better and better. If you just read a book on how to ride a bike, you would never ride a bike. But because you tried it and kept doing it, you learned how. And the same thing applies to any area of life you want to improve. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a creative, whether you're a high achiever, whatever you want to do, whatever goals you have, just start working on it today. And then, whatever problem you come up with, now pause. Don't just keep running at the same problem, because if you don't know what you gotta do and you keep hammering away at it, you're probably not gonna make any progress. You see a problem, now stop, learn how can you get around that problem, because now you know exactly what you need to look up. Then go back to the problem and then use what you learned to get around that. So I guess the biggest thing to take away from this video is to spend 80% of your time doing and 20% of your time learning. That's a big shift, isn't it? But I promise you, if you want to be that successful version of yourself, where you're living your best and better life, where you're waking up and you're seeing progress every single day in your life, you're not going to get that from just reading books all the time. You're going to get that from doing something much more than you're reading. Does this mean never read? Of course read. But spend more time doing, alright? Hopefully this video made sense to you. It was just very short, just a little rant, because I was in that predicament for a long time where I just overconsumed information. And it wasn't until I just said, forget that. I'm gonna consume information, but not as much as I am. I'm gonna just focus on doing, that I finally saw progress in my life, in my business, in my creative endeavors, and start just getting somewhere. And I want you to experience the same thing. So take that risk. Tell yourself, I've learned enough, I've watched enough videos, I trust myself, and I'm gonna go try this thing. I promise you, if you do that, you are separate from the majority of people, and you will actually make your life 10 times better, and you will reach your goals, okay? Now, as always, remember, take action, stay consistent, make goals happen, and I will see you later.